All right, welcome everyone. It's good to be back in my little yoga room. Let's see, go ahead and sit in Swastikasana and pull your feet up and close to the blanket that you're sitting on rather than having it right underneath your knees. Use your hands and turn the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling and observe the effect that that has on the groin already. And then use your hands and turn your calf flesh up toward the ceiling. And use your hands to externally rotate the thighs, so moving them from the inside out. I've been sitting in the car a lot and walking upstairs and bending and moving boxes and things like that. And so I can just feel just those manual adjustments actually help the groin release. So it's pretty remarkable. All right, so just to be willing to take the time to do things like that. Okay. Then press the tops of the feet down into the floor and energetically lift your ankles up. Okay. That should result in you feeling some more firmness come into the outer hips, and as a result, more release coming into the inner groin. Then lengthen up through your side ribs. Make yourself as tall as you can from the sides of the abdomen through each individual rib all the way up into the armpits. Make yourself tall. Keep that height and roll your shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades closer together on your back, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit so that you feel your chest get a little bit more lifted. And again, I've been thinking about that as like an ice cream cone shape, right? So from the base of the shoulder blades, it moves outward toward the edges of the collarbones. One of my teachers, Peggy Kelly, even talks about there's actually some lung tissue that's actually up that high in the chest. So if you can imagine that the prana is moving all the way up to the top part, on the top part of the outside of the collarbones. That's how much the breath can move to expand and open the body. Then keeping your chest well lifted and broad, close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. Then not just folding your palms together at your heart, but actually use the pressure of the thumbs against the sternum to lift that chest more and feel more spreading on the collarbones. When I do that I also feel the trapezius muscle release away from the neck. And with that relaxation of the tension in the back of the neck, I just find it's almost like my eyes just close automatically. And my attention turns from the outer world more deeply in. I mean, that deepness doesn't happen immediately. It's like there are layers that you have to kind of uncover or let go of. But at least when you begin to close your eyes and begin to watch your breath, you invite the process or the potential for the involution of consciousness. One of the great things about Patanjali's books is that he may have written more than one, but the one that we have where he talks about the practice of yoga, he actually gives us lots of techniques that we can use to remove the obstacles towards seeing the inner self. And one of them, he says, is to watch the breath. So as you inhale, go ahead and use the breath like it's a postural adjustment to make yourself taller from the tailbone all the way up through the head. And as you exhale, move the prana or the energy of the breath outward toward your side ribs and armpits. So the breath has that physical dimension, but it also has its own pranic dimension. So turn your awareness now to the breath itself. Particularly follow, as Patanjali suggests, the exhalation. Beyond that, follow the pause that becomes at the end of each exhalation. Let the mind take on the qualities of that pause so that the mind becomes more serene, more sattvic, more still. And from that still place within, let's chant 3 Oms together. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keep your chest well lifted and broad as you bring your chin down to your chest and your hands down to your thighs with your palms up. And then raise your head and open your eyes. Marcia, if any of this above the arm stuff bothers your arm, bothers your shoulder, you can just keep the arm out of the game, or you can keep the arm bent and lift up. Sometimes that helps a lot, okay? All right, but we want to get more length in the side ribs. Okay, so to do that, we're actually going to reach over to the side. So take your left hand and reach your fingertips way over to the side, not even reaching your arm up yet, but you should feel when you reach those left fingertips to the side that there's some additional stretch that actually comes right at the base of the pelvis and that outer side of your hip. Then from there, lengthen up even more. And you can actually, what I'm doing is using my hand to get length in each individual rib cage. Not individual rib cage, individual rib, but the rib cage as a whole, as a collective. All right, and then like I told Marcia, because my arms are a little bit, my shoulders are a little bit tight also, I'm actually switching to a brick here on the side, but I'm gonna put my fingertips on my shoulder and then walk my fingertips down my shoulder so I get that armpit to really open in this bent side position. Then if it doesn't bother my shoulder, I reach the arm up even further. Press down through the feet and reach from that very base of the pelvic region through the whole side of the body, make yourself tall. It should feel really good. Then can you keep that height as you come back up and bring your hand all the way down? And then notice just how much more vitality you have in this side of the body as opposed to the one that you haven't stretched. So let's do the same thing on the other side. I start off just with my fingers and see how it goes right here. And I want to feel, I'm not feeling it as much on this side. Okay, my other side's a little bit tighter. But from that base of the pelvis, through the sides of the abdomen, through each individual rib, you want to feel extension, okay, or space that you're trying to create. Then go ahead and keep your elbow bent. Put your fingertips on your outer shoulder blade, like we've been working on before I left. Right, difference between the inner shoulder blade and the outer shoulder blade. So you feel that opening coming into the armpit itself. Then reach your hand straight like you're doing Parjakonasana. Press the sitting bone down and extend from the side ribs through the armpit all the way up through the ring finger. Make yourself tall. And then see if you can keep that height as you come back to the center. And again, you should just, I feel personally, just speaking for myself, I just feel a little bit more awake from having done that nice side extension. Okay, then stretch your legs out into Dandasana, staff pose. Join your big toes together and spread your other toes wide apart. And my feet are very, very tight from the hiking that I've done in Colorado. So I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time. Can I actually really, really press the big toe side of the foot and spread my other toes wide apart? And you know what, right now, my right little toe is not getting the signals from my brain to move away from the little toe. So I'm going to go ahead and reach forward with my fingers and say, hey, little toe, move away from the fourth toe. And maybe that'll get better as we go along in class. All right. Right, but you should feel your quadriceps engaged, feel your outer hips get firmer, lengthen up again through the side ribs and roll those shoulder bones back. Go ahead and cup shape your fingers. Put your fingertips back behind you on the floor or whatever you're sitting on. Press down with your fingers and lift up into the armpits. Now keep that lift in the armpits and straighten your arms if you can so you can really press your palms all the way down into the floor. And feel that stretch that comes into the back side of the wrist. It should feel really good. All right, then swastikasana on the other side. So take your right hand on the inside of your right knee. Bring your leg in. Use your hand to turn the sole of the foot up toward the ceiling. And do the same thing with the other leg. I'm going to turn my feet again because my feet are feeling pretty tight. Turn the calves and turn the thighs. Okay. All of that just sets the base up nicely. It moves the sitting bones in, femur bones in, and you should feel, again, that lift that comes all the way up into the chest. So let's do the side stretch again with this particular leg cross. You can either put your hand on the brick or on the floor, whichever you feel like gives you more stability to get the length that comes from that base of the pelvis across the top of the pelvis, through the sides of the abdomen, through the ribs, into the armpits. Bend your elbow, walk your fingertips down the outer shoulder blades and really extend from the pelvis through the elbow. So you feel that whole side of your body get longer. Then reach your fingers out and stretch even more and get longer. See if you can push your brick out a little bit more. And then try and keep that height as you come all the way back down. Feels amazing, at least to me. It's a miracle of yoga. Just a little small amount of time can have enormous benefit. I was thinking about, because I haven't been, normally when I go to Colorado, it would come back with a week's worth of inspiration of studying with Patricia Walden, and that's not what I was doing in Colorado this time. So I was thinking about what I really want to share. Go ahead and do your other side. I was thinking about what I really want to share with you based on my experience of the past couple of weeks, is I didn't do as much yoga as I normally do. There were other things going on, right? But so when I was able to roll up my mat for just a few minutes at a time, I was always just reminded that even the smallest amount of work can have a huge difference. It's one of the teachings actually of the Bhagavad Gita too. Arjuna asked Krishna, what happens, after we live this one lifetime? Will I lose all of the good work? And Krishna says to him, don't worry, either the smallest effort on the path is never wasted. So never feel like just because you can't do a whole Zoom class or you've got a lot of other things going on, even just like that 5-minute or 10-minute little drop in the bucket of your asana practice can really have enormous benefit. And the more you just realize that, it gives me an even in some ways deeper appreciation for the power of yoga. Just those small little things can have enormous effect. Okay. All right, let me just see who's popped on. Hey, Bob, it's good to see you. Pratima, welcome. Hi, Radhika. Hi, Sugi. Hey, Vicky, how are you? Okay. What I want to do today also, one of the things I did a fair bit of is we're going to do some shoulder work, but I actually want to work on something that some of you have done a lot with me before that's called calf mashing. And I'm going to try and move my screen so maybe you can see it a little bit more. Okay. So what I'm trying to do, okay, is get the backs of my calves to release, right? And there are lots of ways that we can do that. You might be fortunate enough to have, I'll show you them in just a second, some options. Okay, so can you see, you can see me, good. Oh wow, I'm really big. Okay, so we do have our own calf bone or shin bone to work with, but I'm gonna make a couple of rolls. I think all of you have a blanket. So you unfold your blanket to where it looks like a beach towel and then roll it up. So it makes about this shape roll. Okay. That's one option that you can do. If you happen to have a second sticky mat, and this works really well with the thinner, more traditional sticky mats, like if those, some of you I know went to the convention last year, this is actually one of those convention sticky mats and it's perfect for calf mashing, so you could do that. There are also, I make myself, or I made a long time ago, a special calf mashing implement, which is a piece of PVC pipe that is inside of what do you call those, pool floater thing, okay? So any of those will work, okay? And I'm gonna use this one just because it's the hardest, but you could do any of those. Okay. Then what I'm gonna do is put it back behind my knees and then sit down, out. And it's a little, I haven't done it some lately, but not every day. So if it's too much pressure, whatever you have, you can put your hands on a couple of bricks nearby, and you can support. Actually, it feels kind of good to do that. If you have the bricks, you can kind of support the amount of weight that you want to put on your calf. And another thing that really helps with this calf mashing work is when I do it initially, it's almost like my calves rebel against the mashing and they get a little tighter. So what I have to do is actually tell my calves to release so that they can receive the calf mashing opening. All right, then come forward a little bit and move whatever blanket roll or hard implement you have back toward your feet a little bit more. So you're basically moving this hard implement down the flesh of your calf. And again, I'm using these bricks here to help myself actually get a little taller through the side ribs and keep that extension as I mash my calves. And last one, try and get your, the third one is the place on your calf that is at the very base of the calf. Okay? And that one is usually, for me, particularly tight. Okay, so the first one's up at the top of the calf. The second one's kind of in the middle, the bigger, thicker part of the calf. And then the third one is down at the part of the calf that's closer to the ankle. And each of those have a different ability to release the body, or tightness in the body. For instance, I really am noticing, having mashed my calves, I am really getting release in my sinuses. Right? So stretch your legs out after that into Dandasana, staff pose. All right, then we're gonna do something now after you do staff pose. I know you can't see my head, I'm sorry, but you should be able to see my feet. All right, so what we're gonna do next is something that's called foot meshing. All right, and what you're gonna do is say, here's the arch of my foot. Can y'all see that? That's the bottom foot. And here's the top of the foot that's gonna be on top. So I'm gonna put the top of this foot along the arch of the other foot, okay? And I'm gonna go top of the arch, middle of the arch, and base of the arch, okay? And I'm gonna tell you to wiggle your feet a little bit too. Okay, ready? It's intense, just warning you. Then we'll do some more fun calf mashing. Yeah. Oh, sometimes putting this work of mashing the feet, I find it's actually a little bit more comfortable if I take one blanket and fold it and see how I'm putting it underneath the backs of my knees so I can sit down a little bit more. It's a little easier on the knees that way. Okay, ready? Now take your right foot and put it on top of the top part of the arch, well, the part of the arch that's by your heel. Okay? And put the top of the right foot on that place on your bottom foot. It's very painful. Okay? And then see, can you wiggle your top foot? And then see, can you wiggle your bottom foot? Then go ahead and move your right foot to the center of the arch of your foot and sit back down. And you can someone have a question?
Anne, could you
Yeah.
the other way so I could see what you're doing with your foot?
Yeah, it's not, I don't know how much it's gonna be to see. Can you see my feet now?
If you move up just a little.
Toward you?
No, the other way, the other way. Keep on, keep on, keep on, keep on, keep on, now.
Okay, this is my right foot. It's my, it'll be on the bottom. I put it down. This is my top foot, and I put it on the arch of the foot that's right next to the heel. Can you see that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, now the thing is, I have to sit down so you might not be able to see. Okay, but so pretend that I'm sitting down.
Okay.
Then once I'm sitting down, you're gonna wiggle your top foot. You see how I'm wiggling it?
Right, right.
Then you're gonna stop and you're gonna wiggle your bottom foot.
Okay.
And then you move the top foot to the center of the arch and you do the same thing. And then you move it to the part of the arch that's near the big toe. Can y'all see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And the other thing I just want to say while I'm here is you can kind of experiment. Does it feel better or worse to put the foot near the edge of the bottom foot Or sometimes you might get a little bit more release of tension if you put it more in the middle of your foot. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
It's a good question. And please feel free to ask them. I know that you do. Okay, so for me, if I were just sitting down on my feet, it's a little too intense on my knee. All right, it doesn't, but so what, that's why I have this blanket. Right? I have a little bit of a left knee injury. Okay? So I want to use this blanket to put space back behind the knee. All right. All right, so let's switch feet since you might have been doing that first foot. So I've got my left foot is the bottom foot right now, but if I were mirroring you, it would be your right foot, okay? So I've got my top bone of the foot on the arch of the bottom foot. And I start off at the part of the arch that's near the heel. And first I just sit down and see, can I kind of deal with the pressure? Then wiggle your top foot a little bit, like wiggle the toes. This is preparing you in some ways one day to walk your feet into Padmasana without your hands. You have to have flexible feet to do that. Then this one's really intense. And if it's too intense, again, remember, you can take some of the weight off of the pose by putting your hands on bricks. Then wiggle your bottom foot. Then move your foot down to the middle of your arch. Now for me, it feels a little bit more effective if I move the foot more toward the center of my foot rather than right on the edge of my foot. There's more release of tightness there. And then you're going to move your foot down to the top part of the arch that's near the big toe. And then Vicki, if your foot injury is not better, you can just back off on this a little bit. Someone else had a foot injury too. I can't remember who though. All right, and then wiggle your bottom foot. All right, and then I don't know if we finished the first side or not, but if your feet don't feel even, go ahead and switch feet and do the same thing on the other foot. All right, then what you're gonna do, I'm just gonna turn to the side so you can see, okay, is you're gonna turn your toes under and push back into downward facing dog. And just see if you can observe any effect that foot mashing or the calf mashing had on your downward facing dog. I mean, we didn't do a test dog, but I am observing that my calves are tight, okay, but they appreciated the calf mashing. All right, and then come down, sit down again. Okay, this next one, I'm going to turn hopefully to the side where you can see, oops, I've got black on black. Hold on a sec. The only reason I'm putting this padding down is so that you can see me better. But if you like to use padding, that you can have padding. Okay. See, now I'm on a white surface rather than black on black. So I'm going to bend my knees. This is another way of calf mashing. Okay. And I'm going to put, this is my right calf, I'm going to put it on my right knee. And I'm just going to use, my left knee. And I'm going to move, see, I'm just kind of moving the calf up and down the knee. And you can start off on the outer part of your calf, but you can also work more toward the inner part of your calf, okay? So just do that and take a look and see what y'all are doing. Very good. Excellent calf mashing. All right, I'm glad I took a look at that. That looks very good. Okay, now switch legs. You know, this is something you really can do, you know, not even necessarily as part of a yoga, but, you know, coming off of a road trip of the car or something like that. You can get a lot of release of tension in your legs just by doing this calf meshing work. And in general, what I'm doing is I work from, well, I know you might not be able to see, I work from the top of the calf to the bottom of the calf. And there's some tension that's on the outer calf, okay? But there's also tension that's on the inner calf. And so it's up to you to do that kind of exploration of where are those pockets of tension in your calves. Okay, so just so you can see the difference there, stop your second side, and then come into downward facing dog again. Marcia, if the downward facing dog bothers your shoulder, you could put your hands on bricks, or you could just come into Uttanasana, standing forward bend. Okay. But you should feel, after having done that third or second calf mashing, that there's a little bit of release in the back of your legs. Like for me, I can feel my heels going more readily down toward the floor. My toes are beginning to spread a little bit more. And on my own, the quadriceps are actually beginning to get more in the game because there's less tension in the calf. All right, now this next one, those of you who've been taking the Padmasana class with me have probably already done it. But this next one I learned from my friend Tay. It's the same idea, except you actually put your left knee on your right calf, and you do that same kind of mashing. Okay? It's intense. Okay? It's really like you're doing massage. And so what you're trying to do is really find the place where it hurts. And if it doesn't hurt, hurt is a bad, you want to find the place where it feels like it's getting the most effective release of tension. Okay. And you're in control, really, of how hard you push the knee into the calf and exactly where you push the knee into the calf. And I could probably pick any place, because my calves are so tight, any place on my calf is pretty effective, okay? Then switch legs. Let me take a look and see what y'all are doing there. And give me a thumbs up if you can feel that this is mashing your calves. Okay. Okay, there you go. Good. Radhika, way to go. Thumbs up. That's great. Okay. All right. Where'd Lena go? There's Lena. All right. Good. Y'all are doing this very well, I have to say. All right. Let's see. Then see if you can feel the difference in your, let me just quickly mash my other calf so I'm a little bit even as well. See if you can feel the difference when you come back into your next downward facing dog. And oh yeah, I can really feel that super calf mashing with my knee really did a great deal to get rid of some tension in the outer part of my calves. All right, and then bend your knees and come down. And sit in Upavishta Konasana, seated wide angle pose. And the only reason I have the blanket is so that you can see me a little bit better. All right, then spread your toes well. And my little toe is beginning to get a little bit more of the message that it should be doing something. Extend from your inner knee through your inner heel. Spread your toes, and from the little toe side of the foot, draw all the way up into your outer hip. So you really feel some firmness coming into the outer hips here. Lengthen up through your side ribs and stretch your arms out in front of you. Marcia, you can skip the shoulder work if it's too much for your arms, or you can just do one arm at a time. But interlace your fingers and turn your palms toward me if you can. Extend from your elbows through your wrist bones. Keep your leg action strong. And then reach your arms all the way up into Urdhva Badangalyasana and Upavishta Konasana. Keep sucking your femur bones in, but extending from the inner knee through the inner heel. And reach up from your elbows through the wrist bones to make yourself tall. Now, when I'm reaching up this much, I can actually feel my abdomen draw in and up, and that's called Uddiyana Bandha. And actually, you should also be feeling a Mula Bandha from underneath there too, okay? But I was really feeling the Uddiyana Bandha more. All right, and then bring your hands down, re-engage the muscles of your legs, and to feel the Mula Bandha, you actually want to move your sitting bones in a little bit more, okay? Then stretch your arms out, reach your arms up, okay? So the more you work your legs, the more you'll feel that base root walk, okay? The more you lift up through your arms, you'll feel your abdomen draw in and up. That's called Uddiyana Bandha. And then the third bandha is called Jalandhara Bandha, like we do in shoulder stand. So you can actually do that here. He shows this in Light on Yoga and Parvatasana and Virasana, where he lifts the arms up but brings the chin down toward the chest. Okay. And then raise your head up and release your hands down and come back into Upavishta Konasana. And I can really feel more vitality coming into the top chest, having done just a little bit of that arm work. Okay. You may need a brick for this next work and a blanket. This is what I guess I refer to it as a trip around the hips. One leg's going to stay in Upavishta Konasana, and the other leg is going to do a variety of leg poses. Okay. At some point, I'm going to have to turn around and show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you one side the whole cycle. Okay, and then I'll turn around. Okay, so this leg's staying in Upavishta Konasana. Okay, so first, what I do is I bring the foot in to Baddha Konasana. So I'm on the little toe side of my foot. Okay. Then I point the foot so it's more like a Siddhasana foot. Okay. And you'll feel a difference in the groin. Okay. Then I keep the knee closed and I'm going to bring the leg up into Marichyasana. Now this is the place I can actually feel at that point. I would do better having a little bit of blanket. So I'm going to have a little bit of blanket. So here I am in a Marichyasana and my foot is pointed toward you. And then I'm going to move it out a little bit wider. Then I'm going to keep the knee closed and I'm going to bring the foot back into Virasana. All right, guys, I'm going to talk you through all this again. Now I'm going to turn around and it's going to look a little different, but here's what you do when the foot's behind you. I start off with the foot in Virasana. This leg is still out. Then I sit on the heel, that's called Vajrasana. And then I sit on my foot like I was doing Ardha Matsyendrasana. Then I go all the way back out. Ardha Matsyendrasana, Vajrasana, Virasana, Marichyasana, Siddhasana, Baddha Konasana. Okay, it's called a trip around the hips. Any question about that or thing you need to see more? Let me know. Okay, so at any point you can sit up higher, okay? And at any point you can pad with blankets, all right? So let's do it. You're gonna bring your legs out wide. That's Upavishta Konasana, right? Now take your right hand on the inside of your right knee. Keep your knee out wide and bring your leg into Baddha Konasana. Okay, Baddha Konasana, Carolyn, now I'm remembering, is called bound angle pose. And it's the pose where you're on the little toe side of your foot, and it was like in the little toe side of the foot. So that's called Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. Then you turn the top of the foot down toward the floor. Okay? Move the knee out a little bit wider. And this is referred to as Siddhasana. Siddhasana means wisdom or powers. They're the siddhis that come to you through the practice of yoga, like being in two places at one time, reading the thoughts of other people, you know, all kinds of nifty things. But so this is just a difference. Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose, you're on the little toe side of the foot. Siddhasana, you're on the top of the foot. Now, keeping your knee closed, you're going to bring your leg up with your knee right in your armpit. This leg position is called Marichyasana. Marichi was an Indian sage, okay? And this is called a Marichyasana foot. Then the next one is Virasana. Virasana means hero's pose. So you keep your knee closed and you might need to sit on a brick, you might need to sit on a little bit of blanket, but your foot is on the outside of your hip. That's called Virasana. It means hero's pose. Then sit on your heel. I'm going to turn around again so you can see. When you sit on your heel, that's called Vajrasana, and it means a lightning bolt or a thunderbolt. Then you turn your foot, so you try to come onto the little toe side of the foot, and that is called an Ardha Matsyendrasana foot. Ardha Matsyendrasana means half Lord of the Fishes, and it's a seated twist eventually. Okay, so then you back out of that. So you've got an Ardha Matsyendrasana foot that you're sitting on. Then turn your toes back. That's called Vajrasana, because I'm sitting right on the heel. And then the difference between that and the pose called Virasana is my heel's on the outside of my hip, all right? Then, and just turning back around, come back to Marichyasana. Now that's just the straight leg up. Okay. Then back to Siddhasana, which is when you're on the top of the foot and you really should feel a release in the groin. And then come back to a Baddha Konasana foot and then stretch your leg out wide. Okay? That's one side. I'm going to watch you do the second side. Any questions? No? Okay, ready? All right, so you're going to start off in Upavishta Konasana. That means, as Carolyn, seated wide angle pose. Kona is an angle. Upavishta means wide apart. Okay? Upavishta Konasana. So this leg stays in Upavishta Konasana, seated wide angle pose, but your other leg you bring into Baddha Konasana. Baddha means bound. Kona is the angle. The angle of the pose refers to this angle of the leg. Okay? So this is Upavishta Konasana, same word. See how the angle of the leg is here. Baddha Konasana means bound. You bring the leg up and it binds the angle in place. But can you see that the top of the legs are actually doing the same thing, right? Now observe when you go from the foot position of Baddha Konasana to the foot position of Siddhasana, the siddhis, something changes in the outer hip and the groin. And do that a couple times and see if you can really feel that difference. Here's Baddha Konasana, right, where you're on the little toe side of the foot. Siddhasana, you're on the top of the foot. For me, I feel more release in the groin and more firmness in the outer hip when I have this Siddhasana foot position, okay? Now keep your knee closed and you're gonna bring your leg up into Marichyasana. Now, when I do that, you see how my back is leaning backwards a little bit? That is not optimal. So I just take a little bit of my blanket and sit up on the blanket, and you should see now I can get up a little bit higher. Okay. It's not, I am up a little bit higher, but what I mean is that my lower back can lift up. Okay, so that's Marichyasana. After a while, I maybe don't need it. Now from Marichyasana, I keep the knee closed and I bring the foot back first into Virasana. Okay. So again, from behind, Virasana. See how my foot is on the outside of my hip. Virasana means hero's pose. Okay. Then I sit up on the foot. Okay. And just feel that difference. Feel the difference between Virasana and Vajrasana. Virasana, your foot is on the outer part of the hip. Vajrasana, you're sitting on the heels. Then from Vajrasana, you go to what's called an Ardha Matsyendrasana foot. Okay. Then you just go backwards. Ardha Matsyendrasana means half lord of the fishes. Vajrasana means lightning bolt pose. Virasana means hero's pose. Keep the knee closed and you come back. This is Marichyasana. From Marichyasana, go back to Siddhasana, pose of wisdom. And then from Siddhasana, go back to Baddha Konasana. Okay? That is called a trip around the hips. There are other ways to do the trip around the hips, but you should feel more opening in your outer hips and your groin. Okay. We're going to do that one more time. And I'm going to take more of a look at you as you're doing that. But any questions?
Hey, Anne, are you more toward the edge of the blanket or are you in the center? I feel like I'm falling forward.
You kind of have to play with it. You know, like if you're right, it's a good question. So, for me, the blanket fold that works best, okay. Hold on a sec. For me, the blanket fold works best is making a small trifold, okay, like this, okay? Because that way, when I sit, oops, now you need to see that. Okay. So let's say Pratima, I'm sitting, I'm more on the edge of the blanket, okay? So when I have like, my leg in Marichyasana, see how I'm on this edge of the blanket? Because when I go from Marichyasana to Virasana, then the blanket isn't in the way of my foot. Does that make sense? I'll show from the other side too, so hopefully you'll see better. Okay, so here I've got my blanket support for Marichyasana. Okay. So I'm almost not even sitting on the blanket with one hip. Now I am. Okay, so then the blanket, when I move my foot back to Virasana, the blanket's not in the way. Does that make sense? All right. Let's do it one more time. And then maybe we'll do some foot on foot and try toward Padmasana. Okay, ready? So you're all going to sit in Upavishta Konasana. Sugi, that is a very impressive looking Upavishta Konasana. All right, Upavishta Konasana means seated wide angle pose. Okay, that's what this is, seated wide angle pose. All right, I'm going to move back a little bit, but I can't really see you. All right, I'm going to just talk you through it. Okay, now bring your right leg into Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. And you're on the little toe side of the foot, okay? Now just observe what happens into your groin and your hips when you turn the foot so it goes toward a Siddhasana foot. That means you're on the top of the foot. So Ryan, you're gonna have to get rid of that brick. All right, good. All right, and then you can use your hands to really turn the foot, okay? Now keeping the knee closed, now is when you're gonna bring your leg back up into Marichyasana. And this is when you might need to sit on a blanket or even a brick. Okay. Now when your leg's in Marichyasana, you can make some changes here too. You can have the foot straight ahead. Okay. That gives you one opening in the groin. you can turn the foot out and it gives you another opening in the groin. And you can even move the foot out in front of you a little bit and you'll get even more of a different groin opening, okay? All of those work. But then come back to the closed one. Come back to Virasana. And Virasana is hero's pose and your heel is on the outside of your hip. Then you push up into Vajrasana, where you're sitting on your heel. And then you turn your foot to Ardha Matsyendrasana, and you try and get on that little toe side of the foot here too. Then you just go backwards. Ardha Matsyendrasana, Vajrasana, Vajrasana, Virasana, Virasana, Marichiyasana, Marichiyasana, Siddhasana, Siddhasana, Baddha Konasana. Feel that release in the groin. Stretch your leg out. Oh, so what I'm feeling after now having done this one demo, third time on this side, I'm feeling that my femur bones are really mushing down more toward the floor. And I feel that my legs are like moving out even wider. Okay. So I've got one more side to do. All right, this is called Upavishta Konasana, seated wide angle pose. Okay. Take your hand on the inside of your knee, keep the knee out wide, and bring your leg into Baddha Konasana. Baddha Konasana means bound angle pose. Angle of the leg is the same. Kona is an angle. Okay. The bind refers to the fact that the lower leg, okay, is binding the angle of the top leg in place. Okay, so that's Baddha Konasana. Now observe your inner groin and your outer hip when you turn the foot into Siddhasana. In Siddhasana, the knee actually goes out a little bit wider than Baddha Konasana. Siddhis are wisdom, powers, and that this pose is just named after that. If you actually look up Siddhasana and Light Yoga, it has a lot of interesting yoga philosophy in it. Okay, so Siddhasana, or foot, the knee stays closed, bring your leg up into Marichiyasana. And Marichiyasana is just named after an Indian sage. Sometimes it's called sage twist. It doesn't really have a good English translation. All right, now, then you can play with where the foot goes here. Foot goes straight ahead, you get one release in the groin. Foot turns out, you get another release in the groin. Knee moves out, leg moves out a little bit, you get still another release. Okay. Just that foot leg position just changes a little bit. Then bring the leg back up. Okay, now we have to do the going to the other side. And I'm just turning around so you can see this side a little bit better. Marichiyasana, Virasana. Virasana means a hero's pose and my heel is on the outside of my hip. From Virasana, I go up to Vajrasana, which means lightning bolt pose, and I'm sitting on my heel. From Vajrasana, I go to Ardha Matsyendrasana and try and get on the little toe side of the foot. Ardha Matsyendrasana just means half Lord of the Fishes. It's another twist that's named after the fish who brought yoga to humanity. All right, then backwards. Vajrasana, Virasana, Virasana, Marichiyasana, Marichiyasana, Siddhasana, Siddhasana, Baddha Konasana, Baddha Konasana, Upavishta Konasana. Okay. It's a good way to learn the Sanskrit, actually, because you're doing the poses over and over again, and you're saying them kind of like a little chant for yourself. All right. Okay. So now let's just see. Stand up. And just see if you can feel as you're in Tadasana, the nice effect. Wow, you feel really far away from me now. All right, you can feel hopefully the nice feeling in your hips and particularly in the front groin after you've done all that work. Okay. All right, we're gonna sit back down and do a couple more things, and then we'll just do a couple minutes of inversions at the end. Okay. We did one thing that was called foot mushing. If you like this kind of stuff, this is the kind of stuff we do in the Padmasana class, because all of this is really opening you up for Padmasana. All right, so you're going to sit in Upavishta Konasana again. Again, Upavishta Konasana means seated wide angle pose. You know, Sanskrit names, and many of you know way more about this than I do. Sometimes the name of the pose, just talking to Carolyn because she had asked a couple of weeks ago, tells us about the shape of the pose. So there's nothing that is that exciting really to me about Upavishta Konasana. It just means seated wide angle pose. But sometimes the name of the pose, like mountain pose or Tadasana, tells us more about the energetics of the pose. So we're trying to make ourselves be like a mountain. You know, our Vrikshasana is tree pose. We're trying to make ourselves be like a tree and take on all of the qualities of the tree. And other times, poses are named after ancient sages. A lot of those are twists. And sometimes poses are named after animals. And I would say those are kind of the 4 basic categories of names of poses in Sanskrit. There's kind of the ones that just say what you're doing. Okay? They're the ones that you have some quality of the natural world, some quality of sages, or some qualities of animals. Right? Maybe there's some others, I can't think of them right now. Now, like Ardha Chandrasana, that's half moon pose, so that's like a natural world quality. Okay, so now we're doing what's called foot on foot. Okay. So this is more in the category of telling you the shape of the pose. So I'm going to bring my bottom foot into Siddhasana again. Okay, Siddhasana means pose of wisdom, the knees out wide, and as much as possible, I'm on the top of my foot. So that's one foot. Okay. Then I'm going to bring the other foot on top of that foot. And so it's called, for lack of a better word, foot on foot. It's a little different than Siddhasana itself, because we'll do Siddhasana itself in just a second. So that's the one foot is on top of the other foot. And the pressure of the top foot on the arch of the bottom foot, you should feel release in the groin on that side. All right. Then stretch your legs back out again to Upavishta Konasana, seated wide angle pose. Take your hand on the inside of the knee and bring your leg up, and this bottom leg is in Siddhasana, pose of wisdom. Okay. Move it out even a little bit wider. Okay, so this is the foot. And when you bring your other leg, you're going to put your other foot on top of the foot. Okay. So foot on foot. Pada on pada, I guess. Now, interestingly, my left groin is tighter. That's the one on this side. And I actually feel it more regardless of which place it's in. Okay. I feel more opening coming into the left groin than the right groin, partly just because it's tighter. Okay, so it's getting more of a benefit. All right, then stretch your legs out again. Gonna sneak something in on you. Turn into Dandasana. Come into Navasana. Place your hands on the back of the hips. Start back of the head. Roll back into Ardha Navasana, up into Navasana, and then come back to Dandasana. Okay? Now let's do that one more time. So start out, Navasana, means boat pose, and Ardha means half, and it means half boat pose. We'll go over those again in just a second. All right, so take your right hand on the inside of your right knee, keep the knee out wide, and bring the leg into Siddhasana. Siddhasana means pose of wisdom. All right, now from the Siddhasana foot, you're just going to bring your other leg up, foot up on top, and it's called foot on foot. And I feel a lot of opening in both groins, but particularly in my left one that's tighter. Right. Then swing your legs back to Upavishta Konasana, seated wide angle pose. And then do the same thing on the other side. Bring your leg in. Siddhasana foot. Foot on foot, foot. All All right, and then this is the other thing. You can kind of extend from your inner groin through your inner knee of both legs, and you'll feel more opening coming into the groin. All right, then from foot on foot, go back to Upavishta Konasana. I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see. Here's Dandasana. Dandasana means a staff. Staff refers to the spine of the body. To go from staff pose to Navasana, which means boat pose, like the word naval, okay, navy, boats, okay, same root. From Nava, to go from Dandasana, you just lift your legs up and stretch your arms out straight. Okay? That's called Navasana, means a boat. Okay? From Navasana, you bring your hands behind your head and lower your legs a little bit and try and come more onto the sacrum. That's called Ardha Navasana, half boat pose. Come back to Navasana, boat pose, and then come back to Dandasana. All right. Any questions about any of that? Let's, why don't y'all do, let me see your boat poses again. Okay, so sit in Dandasana. Dandasana means a staff pose, right? So work all of your leg actions, work all your arms. The only thing that changes in terms of the actions when you go from Dandasana to Navasana is really nothing, except you stretch your arms out straight. Okay, so lift your legs up high, lean backwards a little bit so you're right on the sitting bones, stretch your arms out. That's called Navasana. Straighten your legs, Chaya, straighten your legs, Carolyn, if you can. Now place your hands behind your hips. Roll back, that's it, Ryan. Roll back so you're more on your sacrum and draw your abdomen in toward the spine. That's Ardha Navasana. Then come back up to Navasana. Very good. And then come back to Dandasana. And then do a downward facing dog. And feel how the difference of this downward facing dog after having done all of our hip work from the preceding downward facing dogs. All right, and then just bend your knees, come down and watch the last thing, not last thing. Okay, so we're gonna give going toward Padmasana a little bit of a go, all right? And I have the blanket just so you can see me better. But I'm back on my back, which feels really nice. Okay. And I can actually feel from having done that hip work that my abdomen is, and groin work, that my abdomen is more drawn in than it was when I was laying down before, okay? Now you're gonna lift your right leg up, take your hand on the inside of the right knee and move the knee out to the side, point the foot like Siddhasana and bring the foot up. There you go. Bring the foot up to the top of the thigh. Okay, so my leg is in Padmasana now. That means lotus pose. All right, we're going to do that to each side. And then the second time around, we're going to pull the leg up, move this knee out, and just see if you can bring your other foot on top so that you're in Padmasana. Okay? But we're going to do it in stages, but that's the whole thing. Okay, so bend your knees so your feet are on the floor. Take your right hand on the inside of the right knee and move the knee out to the side and point your foot like it was doing Siddhasana or Virasana, pose of wisdom or hero's pose. And then put the little toe side of the foot as high up on the thigh as you can of your left leg. And then just see if you can extend the groin a little bit more. That's it. Okay, so everyone should be able to do that much. Yeah. All right, then undo your leg and just stretch that leg up straight up toward the ceiling. Bend the knee and put that foot on the floor and do the same thing on the second side. So left hand on the inside of the left knee, move the knee out to the side and point the foot like Siddhasana. Okay. Then put the little toe side of the foot as high on the thigh as you can and just open that front groin or deepen the groin. Right. Then stretch your legs up into Urdhva Prasarita Padasana. Okay, that's stage one. Okay. And if you can't do anything more than that, that'll give you plenty of action to work on. All right, stage two, you move your right knee out to the side, point your foot like Siddhasana, put the little toe side of the foot up at the top of the thigh. Actually, that's still stage 1. Stage 2 is when you pull the left leg in and move the knee out, okay? Stage 3, you keep moving your right knee out, and then you just see, can you get your left foot and put it into Padmasana? Okay. If you can't, you just stay at stage 1 or stage 2. All right, I'm taking a look at you to see where you're at. All right, so you get where you get. Okay, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And don't even try and open the knees down toward the floor. You can just keep your legs like you were doing Padmasana. There you go. Okay, then undo your legs and stretch your feet straight up toward the ceiling. This is called Urdhva Prasarita Padasana. Urdhva means up, Prasarita is extended, padas are feet. Okay? But really engage the quadricep muscles of your legs to open the backs of the knees. All right, then bend your knees and put both feet on the floor. Take your left hand on the inside of your left knee and move your knee out to the side. Point the foot like Siddhasana. Okay. Move the knee out away from you a little bit. Now pull your right leg in toward your chest and you'll feel release in the groin. Then move your left knee away from you and see if you can sneak, okay, your other foot in to Padmasana. If you can't, you just stay in stage 1 or stage 2. Okay. Good. Then undo your legs. That's fine, Ryan. It's coming along. You'll have it in a very short period of time. Okay. Then stretch your legs out straight into Upavishta Konasana. With the feet up toward the ceiling, Marcia, unless that hurts your hips. There you go. Good. All right, then roll over to your side and do another downward facing dog. And just see, again, what we're working on is we've worked on the groins, we've worked on the hips. I didn't really do a lot with the shoulders today that I had planned to. But can you feel, raise one of your feet up if you can feel a difference between this downward facing dog and the other downward facing dogs. Into Ekapada Adho Mukha Vrikshasana. Okay, there you go. Very good, everyone. All right, and then release and come down. All right, now it's time to do a Shirshasana, headstand, or whatever you do when headstand rolls around. Okay. Again, some options would be to continue in downward facing dog if you don't do headstand, so I'll show a couple of options. Okay. Again, if you don't do, Shirsha means a head, asana means asana, so it's just the pose of the head. But if you can't do that, you can do downward facing dog again, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Okay. If you can't do Shirshasana, there's also always Uttanasana, standing forward bend, and you can even put a brick underneath your head. And another good one is Prasarita Padottanasana, extended feet out wide with your head on the floor. That actually feels quite fantastic. In fact, it feels so good, I'm going to recommend that everyone do an Upavishta, do a Prasarita Padottanasana before you do your Shirshasana, okay? So you're gonna come stand up straight, and I know you're not gonna see me when I stand up straight, but okay. Have your feet out wide like a standing pose. Okay, so isn't this a lot like Upavishta Konasana, right? Your feet are out wide apart. Okay. Then you're gonna fold forward, put your hands on the floor on bricks, walk your hands back where they're in line with your feet, and then bring your head down to the floor. It feels, to me, incredibly good. Okay. Okay, so your 3 options if you do not do headstand are downward facing dog, standing forward bend, or what we just did, Prasarita Padottanasana, okay? All right, so now it is time to do the actual headstand. Okay, you can do it against the wall. You can do it in the middle of the room. If you know how to do it on 2 chairs, you can do it on 2 chairs. You just decide whatever you're gonna do in the headstand time of class and do it. I'm watching you. Vicki, it looks like your dog is giving you a lot of good support there too. All right, okay. Try to walk your feet in a little bit so you can get more of the armpit opening. All right. Okay, Marcia, that looks good. Ryan, I don't think you need quite that much support under your head. See if you can be a little bit wide. Melinda, that looks great. Oh, yeah, there you go, Ryan. And just walk your feet out a tiny bit wider. So you're getting down toward the floor. Carolyn, that looks pretty good too. There you go. Good, Monica. Melinda, that's really nice looking headstand. You're really getting good shoulder action. Gay, move your legs a little bit over toward the map or toward the bed. You're listing a little bit toward, other way, Gay. There you go, good. Keep pressing your forearms down, lift your shoulders up. Bob, your hips are shifting to the left and your legs are shifting to the right. So you have to be more in Tadasana, so a little bit more. There you go, that looks good. Sugi, that looks really good too. You got good arm action. A little bit, your legs are listing over toward the dresser to the right. Yeah, there you go, you fixed it. All right, Radhika, I'm sure you're doing an awesome job too. All right, now Sugi, go the other way. The legs, then they went too far that way. Move your legs over to the left, Sugi. Even more. There you go, good. All right, there you go, okay. Regardless of what, that looks good, Vicki. Regardless of what you are doing, okay, keep pressing your forearms down and lifting your shoulders up. All right. All right. Sugi, what happens when you correct is then you tend to go too much the other way. So you want to just work on really staying as much as you can in the center. Okay, ready? We're all going to come down. So keep your shoulders. That looks good, Marcia. You can stay up a second or two more because I know you just got up. Make sure it's okay on your shoulders. And then bend your knees, lower yourself all the way down, and everyone rest in downward facing child's pose. Okay. Adho Mukha Virasana. Adho means down. Vira, we already learned, it means hero's pose. And so your feet are actually a little bit more in Vajrasana. But this is a nice pose to do after recovering from headstand. Then come up onto your hands and your knees, turn your toes under, and do one more downward facing dog. And just feel how nice the neck feels and how much you can release the neck in downward facing dog after Shirshasana. All right, then let's do, we only got 6 minutes left. So let's do about 3 minutes of legs up the wall pose and 3 minutes of Shavasana. Okay, so go ahead and come to a wall. You can put a blanket or bolster underneath your buttocks if you want as you put your legs up the wall, or you can just have your buttocks flat on the floor. But find a little wall space, take a bolster, take some blankets, and come into legs up the wall pose. Ryan, for you, if you have a blanket, I would put a blanket underneath your buttocks because your hamstrings are a little tight. Okay? Those should feel a little bit better. Pratima, if it feels good to you to have your legs that wide, you're welcome to leave them that way. But the classic pose is that your legs are actually together. Okay, but we do it with the legs in Upavishta Konasana too. Okay. Chaya, do you need that much underneath your head for this one? Maybe just a little bit, because here you're actually in a little bit of Jalandhara Bandha. Okay, there you go. If you do, it's okay. It just looked like it was a little too much. All right, then just close your eyes. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. This was very much a hip and groin class. And so just observe how the groin descends here. Observe how your abdomen naturally draws in. Observe the feeling of your legs. Observe the quality of your breath and the inwardness of your brain. If you're comfortable here and you want to stay here for the last 2.5 minutes of class, you're welcome to. If you want to come into Shavasana of your choice now is the time to come into Shavasana. Shavasana means corpse pose. The Sanskrit name for legs up the wall pose is Viparita Karani. That means an inverted lake. Okay. But come into either stay in. If you're comfortable in legs up the wall pose, you're welcome to stay. If you want to come into Shavasana, come into Shavasana. Either way. Turn your awareness now to your breath. Again, use your exhalations to draw your awareness to this inner space. Bring your senses of perception there as well. Meaning, let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. Now, those of you who are in legs up the wall pose, bend your knees and push yourself a little bit away from the wall, and then roll over to your right side. Those of you in Shavasana, bend your knees, place your hands on your rib cage, and roll over to your right side. Then everyone, use your hands and push yourself all the way back up to seated. And sit in either swastikasana, cross-leg pose, half padmasana, siddhasana, or see if padmasana actually comes for you now. So you can end in a padmasana if you want. Close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. Observe the effect that your practice has on you. Observe it on every layer of your being, from the physical to the most deeply spiritual. In gratitude to the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga, in gratitude to the people the opportunity to learn and study and practice yoga with, and in gratitude to the lineage of Hatha Yoga itself, as practiced by BKS Iyengar, reaching back to the sages of India, and down through a line of teachers and students to you, here on the mat in Austin, Texas, or wherever you happen to be in the world, through the miracle of Zoom. Namaste.